in 46, 47, around that time, there was a chaos of partition. Hundreds of famines during the 250 years of British occupation. Our ancestors resisted for centuries very valiantly. That's not taught in your history books. Nehru was a disaster for India. Why? Nehru ruined India. Tibet is part of the Indosphere. Today, if you want to go to Kailash Mansarovar, you need a visa from the Chinese. Who the hell are they to give us a visa?
Who do you think has been the best Prime Minister of the country? What would have happened if Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel would have been the Prime Minister? So why don't we take POK?
So Mr. Gandhi, the great apostle of non-violence, he forcibly installed Mr. Nehru as Prime Minister. The Turks, they took over this Delhi. Hindu Kush means the killer of Hindus. Because so many Indians were carried across those mountains forcibly. Okay, Indians today say, oh, it's a mountain named after us, oh, Hindu Kush. You bloody idiot. So you could say that various parts of India have been under foreign occupation until the Marathas emerge and liberate India.
What was special about Marathas?
They had this thing about honor and rules of warfare. The Marathas said, we want to win at any cost. We will defeat them in ways that even they can't imagine. And after the Marathas took over, the British defeated the Marathas eventually. It's not a goddamn colonial era. It's British occupation of India. If you try and calculate okay, how much wealth the British extracted from India, in today's USD terms, 75 trillion. I would say never forget the past. If you forget the past, you are doomed to repeat the same mistakes.
Namaste. Firstly, I want to thank you. This is our 200th episode, almost about 2 years, and the way you have consumed and appreciated Supertalks, I don't have words to thank each one of you. With the onset of this episode, I'm glad to announce that Supertalks is going global. We have started our conversations in English so that we are able to bring our history and culture to those who are unaware. Recently, I watched Imtiaz Ali's latest movie called Main Wapas Aaunga, and as it was based on partition, it kept me thinking about what was the real story and how India was not just during the British era, but starting from Turks to Mughals. This conversation is one of those episodes that will bring you back to your own roots. I can say that these are episodes which are meant for the lifetime, and I would want each one of you to not consume this with a political lens, but just as an Indian who would want to know about what have we faced and what we must learn today. Please subscribe to the channel because Supertalks is not just a podcast channel. I've been telling you for the last 2 years. For over about 10 years, we've been running an NGO for underprivileged children. For each and every subscribe that you do, you're not just consuming this episode or knowledge, but with your subscribe, you are indirectly supporting a cause which supports the education of 200 underprivileged children. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
No one knows about this war going on in Africa, for example, right? There's a war going on in the Somalia region.
Whoa.
Yeah, so...
What is it? Just tell something. It's quite interesting.
There's another war happening in Myanmar, next door to us. Myanmar, Burma. There's a civil war going on in Burma. The government is not in control of half the country, but no one knows about this. India में पता नहीं किसी को. We look at POK. भाई इस तरफ देखो, यहाँ पे कुछ हो रहा है. So in Burma, there's a whole contest happening between the US and China. It's kind of a proxy war. And it's spilling over into India, into Manipur. Yeah. You know, there's a disaster happening in Manipur. Yeah, so that's spilling over into Manipur. Yeah. You know, these cookie terrorists. So that's they are coming in from Burma and they're just walking into India and taking over land. And yeah, it's a mess.
We don't know about it. They're not talking about it.
No one's talking about this. Socho. We talk about Bangladeshi infiltration and all. These just people do talk about that somewhat. But there's this whole cookie infiltration that's happening. Like lakhs of them have settled into Manipur, taken over like half the state. No one's aware of this, right, in India. So there's so much happening in the world that maybe I should talk about.
Oh, absolutely, quite interesting. But what about, you said that there's this proxy war between US China.
Yeah.
What's the basis of this war? Why is it happening?
Well, Burma is home to a lot of rare earth minerals. The Chinese are acquiring that. The US wants to have some say in that. So it's not really far from the Indian border, like 150 kilometers from the Indian border. That's where there's this rare earth mining that's happening, and it's also obviously near the Chinese border, so it goes into China. So the Chinese are acquiring all the Burmese raw earth minerals because those are very valuable. So there is that, and there's also obviously it's a big country. So if you have control over that country, you can play various geopolitical games. So the Anglos, the British and the Americans, they have spent decades converting various hill people to Christianity, and today that's paying back because those are all on their side, and they're fighting the Burmese government. And the same has happened in India, Nagaland, etc. All completely converted to Christianity, and they then act as proxies of foreign powers. So there's a whole kind of mess going on, And in India, we just don't pay attention to the northeast, right? It doesn't exist in our imagination. So yeah.
But Northeast is, do you think that like in the future, Northeast, obviously as an Indian, everybody feels sad when people talk about separation and we cannot let anything like that happen. But with things like that already existing, that we have somebody from like outside external factors, forces inside the country, how is it shaping it for the future of the Northeast?
It's bad, right? There's a lot of separatist tendency, especially among those who have been converted. I mean, the Nagas, they are all mostly Christians now. 50 years ago, like 30% of them were Christians. 100 years ago, nobody was Christian. So it's been massive demographic re-engineering that has happened under the nose of various governments in India. And the Nagas have this separatist tendency. Like, we are not really Indians. We're not Indians. Yeah. If they were not Christians, then they would not have had this separatist tendency because they would have been polytheists and they would identify more with Indian culture. But now it's Nagaland for Christ. It's also Kukiland for Christ. Now they're trying to convert the Manipuris to Christianity. Like a couple of lakhs have converted. The whole of Mizoram is Christian now. Okay, so there's this complete massive industrial scale demographic re-engineering that's been done, which obviously is a threat to our civilization, but we've allowed this to happen. So there's plenty of people from the Northeast who aren't happy being Indians. The question is, kya karna hai aapko? What will you do? You'll create a separate nation of your own, really? So there are all these issues in India. I don't know why we allow foreign forces to interfere. Why do we allow conversions to foreign religions? Why is it allowed to happen in an organized manner on an industrial scale? It's happening in other parts of India now. Punjab, dekh lo. Punjab is all Christianized now. It's getting Christianized. All the Sikh people are becoming Christians. Kya kuch nahi ho raha hai? Why are we sitting back and just watching? Why can't we stop, put an end to this?
So obviously this would mean like there's a foreign funding for Christian missionaries.
Massive, billions of dollars pouring into India every year.
Who is doing it?
American missionary organizations, mostly. The United States is flush with money, right? They've got unlimited money. So it's American missionary organizations that are, and of course you have German organizations, various European organizations that are also involved in this whole matter. And their objective is to Christianize the world, Joshua Project or whatever they call it. So plenty of funding, leadership, organization, all of that is available. All of that is given. For example, these Nagas. I mean, they don't have any local leadership of their own, but they're well organized and all. It's all done through the church. Okay? They're all given directives and directions and whatnot. So this is the game that's been played, that's being played in various parts of India. And I wonder why the government of India doesn't really do something about this. So as you can see, there's plenty to discuss. But a lot of that can't be discussed openly. Yeah.
Do you think there's something deeper to it other than just changing the religion or the conversions?
See, in the 18th and 19th centuries, the Japanese and the Chinese both recorded this.
Okay.
That whenever people in those countries convert to Christianity, they acquire extraterritorial loyalties. So the objective is to turn India into a vassal state, is to turn India into a dependency of the West, just like we used to be during the East India Company days. So that the vast resources of the entire subcontinent can be plundered. Maybe the demographic resources, maybe whatever. That's the whole objective. The objective is to turn India into another Japan. Japan is it's under military occupation by the US. Germany also, and so on. So they want to turn India into that. India currently is a sovereign nation. They don't want India to remain sovereign.
Right. Other than the Punjab, where do you think this conversion is happening at a large scale?
In various tribal belts of India. Okay. For example, the Bhil people are being converted in Gujarat. There are various Koli people, etc., in Maharashtra and all. Well, many of them have converted by now. If you go to various tribal belts of Chhattisgarh or whatever, you will see almost everyone is Christian now. So they start with the poorest people, the most isolated remote groups, the so-called marginalized groups and all. They start with that, and then they start, once those are converted, they move on to the next targets. The easiest targets are the ones who are the most vulnerable because of poverty and all. So Christian conversions obviously involve some transfer of money and all. That we will, you'll get some benefits for converting to Christianity. Where your kids will get an English medium education, all that sort of stuff. So there are inducements that are given for this.
Do you think the government should maybe introduce maybe a committee that specifically looks into the conversion department?
It should happen because this is a threat to Indian civilization, long-term future of our civilization, right? If India becomes a Christian nation, we're done, right? We're no longer India. We are no longer Bharat. So that's the objective. The objective is to do that to India. And I think the government should regard this as a threat to national security.
But it is not.
I don't think it is regarded as such because this is happening openly.
So mostly there's this conversation around that China is taking our land. What's your take on that?
What China is taking our land? Obviously, the border is undemarcated. The Chinese have ensured that they have refused to demarcate the border. They keep on dragging their feet. So the border is undemarcated. So we've got to send soldiers and hold the line. And obviously, the lines will change from time to time. Sometimes they may grab some piece of land. Sometimes we may push back and grab some piece of land. The thing is, the line that we have on the map, it's not the actual thing on the ground. The actual thing on the ground is something different. I mean, Aksai Chin is not currently under our control, right? The whole Ladakh, Arunachal region, the line that we put on the map, that's not what the Chinese see as the border. The Chinese claim Arunachal Pradesh, and we are holding on to it. So the border is kind of undefined, and it's not exactly what we see on the map. So thoda bahut yahan wahan hota rehta hai, right? In the past, we did not even have an armed presence in Arunachal Pradesh. Now we have it. So now things are actually better. Now things are better under the Modi government. The past governments did not build any roads, any infrastructure. You couldn't even reach Arunachal Pradesh. If you wanted to reach the Tawang region, it would take you 3 days of travel by road from wherever. Now it's way easier to do that. So now things are better. But obviously propaganda will be there that China has taken land. China took land in 1962, right? They took Aksai Chin in the 1950s when Mr. Nehru was sleeping. So that is the land grabs that have happened. Whatever happening now, a few kilometers here and there, that's just routine, because the borders are not demarcated. And when it snows, you go back and stay away. But once the snows go away, you go back to and stare each other down face to face. Right. And if somebody grabs a few meters of land, they keep it for a while or whatever.
For you, as per your research and as per your interest in geopolitics, who do you think has been the best prime minister of the country?
Modi. I have my criticisms of Mr. Modi. I'm not like he's the best guy ever in the whole history of India. But since 1947, he's done the most for the country. I have a lot of quibbles about various things. I'm deeply frustrated with the fact that Indian culture is being completely marginalized. Culture has been reduced to a sideshow, essentially. The education system is crap. I have all kinds of frustrations, but overall, he is still the best prime minister we've had.
How?
Because he has done so much. I mean, see, in 2014, how many airports did India have? Half of what we have today. He's doubled that, okay? Between 2014 and today, almost the entirety of India has been electrified. People didn't have electricity. People didn't have drinking water. People did not have toilets. People did not have bank accounts. He's given all of those basic things to the people of India. Hundreds of millions of Indians have been brought out of extreme poverty in the past 12 or so years. He's done a lot. He's done a lot for national security. Terrorism was a day-to-day affair in India. It was a way of life before 2014. Used to have bomb blasts all across the country every week. If some part of India, every week there'll be a bomb blast. There'll be a terror attack somewhere. Today we go to war with Pakistan if that happens. So a lot has happened. And still a lot more needs to be done. You could say that, you know what, building railways, building roads, even a bureaucrat can do that. Okay, I agree. It's no, you don't need a visionary leader to do that, but at least he did it. He did it. Nobody else before him did that. So that's why if we are a country of low standards, this is the best we've had so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
So mostly people scrutinize the government for, specifically Prime Minister Modi, for not appearing on press conferences and giving answers to the people directly, and with paper leak and all the things happening. So people start questioning the government.
So this is one of my frustrations. Why has corruption not been recognized as a major problem for India? Where is the war on corruption? Why is corruption still a way of life? If you have to interact with the government at whatever level, you have to face corruption in some shape or form. Why is this still the case? Huge, huge problem. Right? So there are issues. I mean, yeah, like you say, he doesn't face press conferences. Maybe he's had bad experiences as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, which is why he has stayed away from the press. Whatever it is, look, I don't care about that. All I care about what he is doing. Kya kaam kiya hai. That's what really matters. If I were the leader of India, maybe I would also not take press conferences. So,
Do you think he's better than Nehru?
Way, way better. Nehru was a disaster for India, bhai. Nehru ruined India. When China invaded Tibet, he sent rice to the Chinese troops. Tibet was part of the Indosphere. Today, Tibet has become China. Tibet should have been under our protection. Today, if you want to go to Kailash Mansarovar, you need a visa from the Chinese. Who the hell are they to give us a visa? But they are in this position today because of Shri Nehruji. He gave away the Cocoa Islands to Burma. The Sultan of Oman was offered India the port of Gwadar because it belonged to Oman. Nehru said give it to Pakistan. The Americans and the Soviets on multiple occasions requested India to take the permanent seat on the UN Security Council. Multiple times. And Mr. Nehru every single time said, please give it to China. Give it to China. Then we'll talk about India. I could go on about Mr. Nehru. The worst prime minister we've had in the history of India.
Mostly people talk about if today we see AIIMS and IITs, it is because of Nehru's.
A signature on a piece of paper. Anybody can do that. So, what's the big deal? You could say that because of Mr. Nehru, we have ISRO today. Look, Mr. Nehru wanted prestige projects. So he made these things happen. But he did not build these institutions, right? He signed a piece of paper. Okay, I want an AIIMS. I want a rocket launching organization because it gives me prestige. It makes me look good. He did everything out of ego, the guy. Okay? You create an organization, an institution. That institution is built by the people who are in the institution. Right? And many of the institutions that we have were inherited by the British, from the British occupation of India. Many of them. Right? For example, the IAS, it used to be the IFS. It used to be the ICS, Indian Civil Service. So a lot of these things were just inherited from the British occupiers.
Another conversation is around that during those times when, just after the partition, the country was the most unstable ever, and to capture the essence and bring laws during just that stage was maybe something very difficult for a prime minister to.
Well, when the country is transitioning from foreign occupation to freedom, there's going to be a difficult period of time. That's why we need good leaders at the time, right? There'll be chaos of some sort. There was a chaos of partition, right? We had violence. We are told that it was a two-sided violence. It wasn't, but it is what it is. So when you transition from foreign occupation to actual self-rule, there's going to be issues for a decade or so. And you need a good leader to be at the helm of the country at the time, don't you? And yeah, so.
Right. Do you think that what would have happened if Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel would have been the prime minister?
Would have been somewhat better, significantly better probably, because he was a realist. He was not an idealist. He was not somebody with his head in the clouds. Mr. Patel had written to Mr. Nehru about what he could see, what he could foresee the Chinese behavior towards India right? What it would be like. He had written to Mr. Nehru that the Chinese are not our friends. We should not be under any illusions. The Chinese are acting themselves like an imperialist power, right? So if Mr. Patel was in charge, I suppose Tibet may have been saved by India, right? Tibet may still be free today. And definitely there would have been no Aksai Chin taken over by China and that sort of thing. So India would have been in a much better position if Mr. Patel had been the prime minister. And the thing is that, you know what, in 46, 47, around that time, when the British were preparing to leave India because they'd sucked India dry, there was nothing more to suck out of us. At that time, there was a so-called election that happened in the Congress, in the Indian National Congress. Okay, the various local Congress representatives from various parts of India, they came and they came to elect a prime minister, and all the votes went to Mr. Patel. Mr. Nehru did not get a single vote, and then Mr. Gandhi said, "I'll go on strike. I'll go on hunger strike if Mr. Nehru is not made the prime minister." So Mr. Gandhi, the great apostle of non-violence, he forcibly installed Mr. Nehru as prime minister. At that time, Mr. Gandhi was not even a member of the Congress party. Okay, right. Fun history.
So mostly I see that when we study about the history of India, one story always comes up, and that is of how Kashmir became an issue for the country. How do you think that during that time when Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel is often regarded as he was in touch with the throne of Kashmir, and they were willing not to be a part of the country. So during that time, how did Nehru play the role of, is it like, what is the real story behind everything that happens in Kashmir today? Did Nehru come on radio and said that we will put Kashmir as a disputed territory?
No, I don't think so.
What really happened then?
So what happened is that the Pakistanis decided to invade. Okay, I think it was some British officers who raised the Pakistani flag in Gilgit-Baltistan or whatever it was, and then the Pakistanis sent these irregular troops to invade Jammu and Kashmir. Some of them were, I don't know, whatever, militias or whatever. So the invasion begins. It's essentially a war launched on India by Pakistan. And before that, what is the deal is that I believe the Maharaja of Kashmir had signed the instrument of accession and sent it to the government of India. And I think Mr. Nehru kept on rejecting it or something. Eventually, it was Mountbatten who had to accept it. And so the Pakistanis launched an invasion of India. And India's response was a little lax in sending reinforcements and fighting back the Pakistani troops. Eventually, I think Mr. Patel went to Srinagar or something. I am not very clear about what the deal was, but we fought back the Pakistanis. And if we had fought the war for a couple of weeks more or whatever, we would have evicted all the Pakistanis from the whole of J&K. And maybe we could have marched on Islamabad and taught them a lesson also, perhaps, but we chose not to do that. So Mr. Nehru put a ceasefire into operation before the Indian army was able to liberate the whole of Jammu and Kashmir. And that's why we still have this issue today. That's essentially what happened. He said, we will go to the United Nations. Why? You have an army, a military. Why don't you use them and finish the job and then go to the UN if you feel like? So,
but can't, if something has been done by the previous prime minister, can't that be overturned by a new prime minister saying that now we would not want the UN to interfere or something like that?
Of course.
Then why don't we do it now?
Today, we don't recognize any UN authority over the J&K issue, right? We don't. India's stance today is very clear that Jammu and Kashmir, whatever the issue is, it's a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan. And secondly, we say that Pakistan has no right to have any hold or any claim on Jammu and Kashmir. If they Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, it's an illegal occupation, right? So our stand is very clear that the UN has no mandate or no right to interfere in this matter. It's purely an internal matter for us.
So why don't we take POK? Then it's been so many years.
Because the whole thing has solidified now. See, today India and Pakistan are both nuclear weapon powers, right? So there is that. And so the matter has become more complex now. Both are nuclear weapons powers. We don't want to, at this time, launch a big war. Secondly, the issue is that if we take back POK, a lot of the people who live there today are not Kashmiris. They're Punjabi, Pakistani Punjabis or whatever. And if we take back POJK today, we're going to have to reabsorb those populations into India. Do we want them right now? Radicalized India haters, most of them. Yeah.
So we also started with Africa in the initial part of the episode. Why do you think is, other than rare earth minerals, do you think there's anything else which is inside Africa that most countries are behind?
See, Africa probably holds about 50% of the Earth's total resources of all kinds. There's minerals, there's metals, there's a lot of tremendous amount of fertile land in Africa that can be used for agriculture. For example, much of the world's coffee comes from Africa. Much of the world's cacao comes from Africa. Cacao is the raw material that you use to manufacture chocolate. There's plenty of diamonds to be mined in Africa, especially on the southwestern coast of Africa, the Namibia region, other parts of Africa as well. There's plenty of gold, silver, there's uranium. When the Americans did the Manhattan Project, they brought in hundreds of kilograms of uranium ore from, I believe, Congo or wherever it was, somewhere in Africa. So there's plenty of resources in Africa. And the whole battle right now, Africa is a battleground, geopolitical battleground. And the big powers are vying for influence and control. So you have the Chinese who are involved, you have the Russians who are involved, the Americans obviously are going to be involved. They've been involved for a very long time. The French are also involved still to some extent. The French had a lot of control over the Sahel region and the Francophone Afrique region, okay, that region. Now the French are no longer that influential and powerful, but yeah. So everyone wants a piece of Africa. And who suffers? It's the poor people of Africa. They've been suffering for the past 300-400 years, ever since the Europeans decided to colonize and plunder the hell out of Africa. And similarly, before the Europeans came to Africa, the Arabs had their own slave trade. They used Africans for labor for centuries. And it was brutal, it was horrific, it was inhumane, horrible. So the Arabs, what they would do is, and that's why you have Islam in Africa, by the way. So what they would do is they would go to northern Africa, they would go to eastern Africa, deep inside, and they would bring back men mostly. I'm sure that's women and children also, but yeah, they would bring back these people as slaves. So the question is, if the Arabs brought in so many African slaves, why don't you have black people in the Arabic countries today? It's a good question, right? I mean, if you go to Arabic countries, you will find lots of Arabs who look like Indians.
Yes.
Because they took Indian women slaves. Okay? That's why.
Oh, is this for real?
That's for real. Okay? But why not? Why doesn't any Arab look black or half African? Because those African male slaves they would bring back, they would be castrated. And then made to work. Okay? That was the practice among the Arabs. I'm sure they must have brought millions of male slaves from Africa to use as human labor. But they would all be castrated before being put to work. So that's the horrific story of the Arab slave trade in Africans. And about the Indian thing that you are so surprised by. The Arabs, see, India was under Turkic occupation for the best part of like 700 years. It begins in around 1000 AD. Around that time. The first Arabic invasion is about 700s AD. Okay, the invasion by Muhammad bin Qasim of Sindh. But the proper issue begins around 1000 AD with the Turkic invasions of India. So the Turks originally were polytheists. Okay, they believed in a religion called Tengrism, which is called Tengrism in English. It's a polytheistic religion. Even the Mongols practice that. But eventually the Turks converted to Islam. And then they started invading India. The first part of India to fall to the Turks was Gandhar, which is today now called Afghanistan. So Afghanistan is the original Kashmir. The issues we have in Kashmir today, originally you had the same in Afghanistan. So Afghanistan, Gandhar was the first to fall, and then slowly over centuries, the Turks started encroaching further into India. Our ancestors resisted for centuries very valiantly. That's not taught in your history books. Then the Turks, they took over this place, Delhi. Right? Delhi became the capital of the Delhi Sultanate, the kingdom of the Turks. You had the Mamluks, which is the slave dynasty. You had Balban, Iltutmish, these people who ruled out of Delhi. You had Razia Sultan, who was there for a few weeks or whatever, and so on. And then you had the Mughal Empire, the Mughal kingdom. What's his name? The first guy, Zahiruddin Babur, right? He's the guy who starts it. So slowly the encroachment happened like that. So these Turks, when they came to India, they sent back millions of Indian slaves across the Upari Siena mountains into Central Asia. Now today we don't call those mountains the Upari Siena mountains. We call them the Hindu Kush. What is the meaning of Kush? Kill. Hindu Kush means the killer of Hindus. Because so many Indians were carried across those mountains forcibly, and the mountains are pretty wild and cold. So it killed God knows how many of our people. And they were all killed in the mountains. That's why the mountains acquired the name Hindu Kush, the killer of Hindus. Okay, Indians today say, oh, it's a mountain named after us. Oh, Hindu Kush. You bloody idiots. It's the killer of Hindus. In Sanskrit, it was called the Upari Siena mountain. What is a Siena? Siena means eagle. Where does the word Shaheen come from? Shaheen means falcon. Shaheen is a Persian word. It's not an Arabic word or Turkic word. So the word Shaheen, it means falcon or eagle. It comes from the Sanskrit Siena. So Upari Siena means so high that even eagles can't fly that high. That was the actual name of the mountain range. So these Turks, they brought back, they kidnapped, they abducted probably millions of Indians to take into Central Asia. And among the men, they would select artisans, people with trade skills, people who would be architects and builders of monuments and all. And they built some of the great monuments in Central Asia, like the various, for example, the mausoleum of Timur, wherever it is, etc. And the women, they would be sold off in the slave markets of Samarkand and Bukhara. And they would then be transmitted all across the Islamic world. And
Indian women.
Obviously, Indian women. And that's how you have so many Arabs who look like Indians today. Okay? Go to Yemen. Have you seen the Yemenis people? The Yemenis look just like Indians. Right? And go to Iraq. Go to other parts of the Arabic world. You will see lots of people who look like Indians. They'll not realize why, but we know why. And obviously, we have the Al-Zat people. The Al-Zat. They were not slaves. They were Indians who migrated to Mesopotamia, etc. The Al-Zat. The Jats. Okay?
Right.
Allegedly, Saddam Hussein was an Al-Zat. Allegedly. I don't know if it's true, but I think there is some speculation about that. That maybe Saddam Hussein possibly, maybe most likely, was a descendant of the Al-Zat people. I mean, if you look at the guy, he looks kind of Indian, like, doesn't he? So yeah, there's so much of this. So that's how so many Arabs look like Indians.
Right.
There's a very dark reason for that.
So, as per this, I'm sure there must be sex slavery in India as well.
In India.
Yeah.
Done by us.
No, not by us, by somebody else.
Of course.
Who did it?
The Turks.
They did it.
It was a normal practice for them. No big deal. They would have harems of women. Right. They would abduct girls, young, good-looking girls, and put them into this so-called harem thing. And yeah, they would be used as sex slaves. Yeah.
It's not sold in markets?
Sold in so there's yeah. So the Indian women who were sold in the markets of Bukhara, Samarkand, Kabul, wherever, after Kabul fell to the Turks, they would be used as, I suppose, sex slaves, I suppose. And obviously then they would have offspring who eventually became part of the general population in Arabic world. And that's why so many of them look like us. Right. So that obviously was, if you purchase a woman, I mean, I suppose that's what they did with them. Right? Yeah.
So this means that during those times, India was totally fallen when the Turks took over?
It was a process that took time. Right. So the process begins around 1000 AD. That's when the Ghoris convert to Islam. The Ghoris were Buddhists. Okay. The Ghoris were Buddhists. They converted to Islam. So that's around 1000 AD. But when does Zahiruddin Babur take over Delhi? Sometime in the 1500s, right? That's half a millennium that we fought.
Long time.
We fought. Our ancestors fought. And those fights are not recorded. That resistance is not recorded. So it took the Turks about 500 plus years to start taking big parts of India. But if you regard the beginning of the Turkic occupation as around 1000 AD with the fall of Gandhar, so you could say that various parts of India have been under foreign occupation for the best part, were under foreign occupation for about the best part of 700 or so years, until the Marathas emerge and liberate India from all the way to parts of Afghanistan. The Marathas liberated India, right? And then you also had people like Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who briefly at least liberated Kashmir, etc. From the various invaders and so on. So it's been a pretty bloody decade, millennium. The Chinese keep complaining about their century of humiliation, right? From the Opium Wars all the way to the establishment of the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, until the establishment in 1949 of the Chinese Republic, the century of humiliation. We've had a millennium of humiliation. We've been under foreign occupation and after the Marathas took over, the British defeated the Marathas eventually. And then you had the beginning of the British occupation of India. We think of it as the British colonial era. It's not a goddamn colonial era. It's British occupation of India. They occupied and destroyed India. They plundered India. They made a mess of India. Hundreds of artificial famines. Millions. I'll tell you, hundreds of millions of Indians died. Your historians will not record these numbers. If you have hundreds of artificial famines, okay, and a standard famine kills 1 million people. So hundreds of artificial famines. That's hundreds of millions of people. And they don't count the deaths that happen as a consequence of the epidemics that spread during famines. Because with famine comes disease. When people aren't eating enough, their immune systems go for a toss. And that's how diseases spread. Okay? So you had famines, and then you had epidemics that accompanied famines, and the deaths because of the epidemics were never recorded as part of the famines, the death of the famines. So you had hundreds of millions of Indians who were killed by the British, and that's simply not recorded as a genocide.
What do you mean by artificial famines?
Yeah, that's a good question. What are these artificial famines, right? If you look at the history of India, before the 1700s, in the 2000 years before the 1700s, there were maybe like 3 famines in India. 3. In 2000 years. After the British started taking over India, there's a famine every year in every part of India. Okay? Hundreds of famines during the 250 years of British occupation. The last one was the Bengal famine in the 1940s. Okay? So these were artificial famines. The British realized that why should we fight the Indians? I mean, the Indians are dangerous, they'll fight back. But they can't fight if they don't eat. So engineer famines. So how do you engineer famines? You engineer famines through a signature, through a piece of paper, by changing policies. So let's say you have a region of India where everybody raises various kinds of crops. Let's say wheat, rice, whatever it is. So you now decree every farmer will now grow indigo. Or every farmer will now grow cotton. Or you will all grow opium now. So you are growing stuff that is a cash crop, but you can't eat that. And that will be then taken by the British. That opium, let's say these guys have been forced to grow opium. The British will then take the opium and export it to China. Forcibly. They will force the Chinese to import the opium, and in return, the British will get silver from China. So they take this, they converted Indians into slave labor, okay, who would grow cash crops for them. The cash crops bought them silver from China. It destroyed China also by addicting the Chinese to opium. And because the Indians were forced to grow cash crops, they did not have food to eat. And eventually, there would be a famine. And you could, this is just one mechanism of creating an artificial famine. Of course, if there is a cash crop growing here, you can import food from the neighboring regions. But that would be prohibited. Okay? Those days, we did not have trains and transportation and trucks and whatnot, right? So it was not that easy to transport foodstuffs or whatever. And the British would probably ensure that that it was not transported. So this incredibly fertile, prosperous subcontinent, they turned it into a disaster zone. They created hundreds of artificial famines. There's this guy called Ravenshaw. If you go to Odisha, there is a Ravenshaw college. Ravenshaw. Great man, British guy who reformed society in India. That guy oversaw one of the famines in Orissa when he was the, whatever designation he had there. He was the guy in charge, and he oversaw one of the famines. You had hundreds, like I said, of artificial famines in India. Even the Mughals did not do that bad. I mean, even they did not, ravage India that badly. The British did. So it was a policy. And I'll tell you what, some people may say, I'm over-exaggerating things. The British did the same thing in Ireland. The Irish potato famine. The British have done the same thing over and over again in various parts of the world, including in their own part of the world, in Ireland. Ireland obviously is not Britain. The Irish aren't English. The Irish hate the English actually, because of what the English have done to them historically. The Scots are not, historically they also hated the English. Even in the British Islands, nobody liked the English. Historically, it's true, right? So so that's the artificial famines. And we are not taught about this in history. We are told that the British were great reformers for India. They gave us the English language.
Yeah.
The English language is a bloody burden on India. Okay? We need to decolonize ourselves. People like me, are mentally colonized because we speak English better than our local languages. Right? It's because of what we went through in the education system and during our formative years. So English is a burden on us. It imposes a massive sense of inferiority on Indians. First of all, most Indians, they speak English, at least because of school, as one of the primary languages. But they speak English poorly. And they can never speak English with the accent that the English have. So, but you try to copy that, but you can't do that. So you have this feeling of inferiority. Okay? So you speak this foreign language, you don't speak it well. You don't speak it with the accent that the English have. And in Indian society, if you don't speak English well, you are regarded as somebody inferior, right? Yeah. You don't get a good job. You're looked upon as a gawwala bumpkin or whatever. Mm-hmm. This has to go. Right. This is deep mental colonization that's permeating every level in India. And we are simply furthering the reach of the English language today. I mean, it's like an official language in India today. Why is it an official language of India? So these are big issues that are left over from the British occupation.
Maybe right now, because I clearly remember one of my friends, like a couple of years ago, he was advocating for the Britishers. He was just sitting somewhere, he was saying, Raghav, see, we learned so much discipline. Do you know who got railways? And at that stage, maybe I was also somewhere convinced that maybe this was something all right, even if Britishers were here. They have given something. But the fact of the matter is that when you actually read about like famines and everything and all the things the Britishers have done to the country, they have probably taken India maybe a century पीछे लेके चले गए.
I'll tell you what. If you try and calculate okay, how much wealth the British extracted from India, various historians and economists have done that. Okay, so the best available figure is about, in today's USD terms, 75 trillion. 75 trillion. Recently, a shipwreck was found. Okay, near, I think in the English Channel. Okay, between the continent of Europe and England, a shipwreck was found that was a ship that originated in India somewhere, probably Kolkata or something. The entire ship was full of silver. An entire ship full of silver was it went underwater. It got wrecked. But imagine there was Indian silver. A ship full of Indian silver was going to England. That's just one small example. Now, when it comes to what the British gave India, they built railways for us. Kiske paise se banaya? They built the railways using our money, our labor. And what was the purpose of the railways? Was it to give Indians nice train rides? No. It was the infrastructure of extraction. If you wanted to extract stuff from India and transport it to the coastal ports from which it will go to England, you needed railways.
Right.
That's why they built railways. Not to serve the Indians. They gave us education. They destroyed our indigenous education system, which was the best in the world. The indigenous Indian education system gave the world the concept of universities.
Yes.
Of proper universal education. They destroyed that utterly. Sanskrit was the primary language in India. They destroyed that utterly. Today people don't even know what Sanskrit is, even though we all use Sanskrit vocabulary even today. Every Indian language has a lot of Sanskrit vocabulary. We don't realize that. So they destroyed our indigenous education system and they imposed their inferior colonial education system upon us, which we still continue today. We may teach computer science and stuff, but the way it's taught is the 19th century way.
I think this was the simplest way to destroy the culture.
Yeah.
And if you're, say, mostly proud about your own language and everybody is proud of their own identity, if you simply destroy it, eventually, you get the slave out of that
Exactly.
individual.
So if you want to enslave a people, this is how we do it. It
Yeah.
takes time, but you enslave them completely thoroughly. So long after the master is gone, the slave continues to whip himself.
Right.
That's India today. Okay. So the British gave us railways? No. They made the railways with our money and our labor and for their benefit to extract stuff out of India. If they build roads and highways, same reason. If they gave education, they first destroyed our indigenous education system and then imposed their foreign inferior education system upon us to colonize us mentally. They destroyed India's industries. India was the world's first fully industrialized civilization, 5,000 plus years ago. If you look at the great metropolises in the Saraswati Sindhu region, you had hundreds of cities, okay, fully developed cities. It was a completely urbanized civilization that we had, our ancestors had. You had cities with incredible town planning. If you go to Manhattan, if you go to New York City, if you go to Los Angeles, you will see the grid system on the city, right? The city is laid out in grid system. We had that 5,000-6,000 years ago in India. We had flush toilets back then, okay? We had shipbuilding. If you see the port of Lothal, okay, there's a harbor in Lothal. If you see that, it compares favorably with the harbor in Visakhapatnam, which can accommodate aircraft carriers. But we're talking about something that's from 6,000 years ago. We had hydro engineering, we had every single form of industry back then. And the British, what they did is that they completely de-industrialized India. In India, everybody had an occupation. So when a kid was growing up, there was no question about job milega ke nahi. Every family, every community had their own occupations. There was no question of joblessness. The whole Indian economy was self-sustaining. It was brilliant. The British destroyed all of this. Today, a kid who is 12, 15, they don't know what the future is going to be like. I need to get so-and-so degree and then I'll have to go and stand in line for a job. Job milega ke nahi? We don't know. We did not have the situation at all. Everybody was peaceful. Everybody was prosperous. The country was... This was destroyed by the British. We have lost so much that we are not even aware of. And today we praise the British. Oh, उन्होंने judiciary दिया. The judiciary, did we not have our own form of judiciary? Did we not have our own form of, law and order and justice? Obviously, we had all those things. The British and the judiciary the British imposed upon India, it served the British. Okay? So when a British person approached the judiciary for whatever court case or whatever, that would be dealt with quickly. But when a native went there,
That would be questionable.
that would take time.
Is it so? Of people say that in 18th century we were world's one of the biggest GDPs.
Yeah.
What were we actually doing at that time?
So I'll tell you, there's this American economist whose name is Angus Madison.
Okay.
He compiled a history of an economic history of the world of the past 2,000 years. Okay, and if you see that, you will see that between the year 1 AD, where his history starts, and the 1700s, India was the world's largest economy. India accounted for at least 1/3 of the entire world's GDP. Okay. During the time of the Roman Empire, India dwarfed Rome economically. The Roman Empire is what we regard as the greatest empire of all time. It was dwarfed by India's GDP. According to the American economist Angus Madison, who is extremely well respected, nobody questions him. India's economy dwarfed Rome. India's economy dwarfed the entirety of Africa. That's what you had. India was a fully industrialized economy, a fully industrialized civilization. You had every form of industry available. 500 BC, we were making crucible steel, which is now called Damascus steel. The best steel in human history. 500 BC, we were making that. 600 BC, in southern India, in even Sri Lanka. Okay? We had every form of industry available. And everything was this. That's why we had the biggest economy. Because everybody was productively occupied and engaged in something or the other. Everybody was productive. Everybody made something, contributed something. Another reason why the Indian economy for a while came in the Western eyes is because we traded with Rome. Okay, we traded with Rome. We had ports on the east coast, west coast of India with from which we traded with the Romans, or obviously the west coast of India also. So what we did was we exported spices and we exported luxury goods like high quality fabrics and textiles and all that to
Across
Romans.
the globe.
To the Romans, because at that time Rome was a big deal in the Mediterranean region. So we had traders who would go all the way to Rome through the what is now called the Red Sea, through Egypt, because there was no Suez Canal then. You had to go overland through Egypt, and then you went to the Mediterranean, and then you would take another ship and go to Rome. And the Romans, they were addicted to Indian pepper, Indian spices, and Indian luxury goods. Or if you see the city, I think there's this place. They found this statuette of an Indian goddess or something. I think it was in Herculaneum or wherever, which was a city destroyed by a volcano. So the Romans, they were addicted to Indian goods and Indian products, but they were very concerned that they were losing all their gold to India. Because in exchange for the spices and all the luxury goods, they were sending gold back to India. So you find, if you look at a map of the world where Roman coins are found, you will see the Mediterranean world, and then you will see India. Even northern India, all the way to Gandhar. And China is hardly anything. And people said there was a Silk Road. There was no Silk Road. India was the place with whom Rome traded.
Right.
So India became...
So Rome traded for steel, spices?
Not steel.
Not steel.
No, steel is a different thing. Indian steel was very, very well sought after, but not by the Romans.
Okay.
The Romans wanted spices. See, Rome had become an empire. They had become very wealthy in the Mediterranean world. And then they discovered Indian products and they were addicted to that.
All right.
So it was mainly spices, pepper. The Romans, for some reason, loved Indian pepper. There is a Roman mosaic or fresco on a wall of a lady who represents India. On one side there's a tiger, on one side there's a elephant, and behind her there are these pepper vines, plants where pepper grows. So they loved Indian pepper.
Right.
So the Romans traded with India. They imported very large quantities of spices, especially pepper, and luxury goods from India.
Right.
And they paid India in gold.
That was a mode of currency.
There was a thing, yes.
Okay. So if we talk about the ancient India, how the GDP was this big, so we can say that we've been manufacturing clothes, spices, steel. Anything other than this?
Everything you can imagine. We had all kinds of industries. We had, goldsmiths, we had silversmiths, we had shipbuilders. India, I'll tell you something. When this fine gentleman, Vasco da Gama, okay, when he was looking for India, so there were two fine gentlemen, okay, in the 1400s who were looking for India. One was Vasco da Gama, Portuguese. The other was Christopher Columbus. So Vasco da Gama went eastwards and Christopher Columbus went westwards. And Christopher Columbus stumbled upon the Americas and he imagined he had reached India. And that's what he reported back to his masters in Spain. Anyway, Vasco da Gama he's looking for India. So what happened is that in the 1400s, 1456, the Turks took over Constantinople. And that cut off the trade route between India and Europe. The overland trade route. So Europe could no longer acquire Indian spices or whatever. So they were desperate to find another way to reach India. So Vasco da Gama said, okay, I'll go south of Africa and see if I can find a way. So he reaches the southernmost port of Africa and is very hopeful, ab mujhe milega. So he calls it the Cape of Good Hope, Cape Town. And then he goes further east, he reaches the east coast of Africa. And when he reaches the Kenya region, you have this, Kenya was populous and prosperous and you had lots of Indians in Kenya. So Vasco da Gama thinks, I've got the world's best ships. He reaches Kenya, he sees ships that are 3 times as big as his ships. And these are Indian merchants, Indian ships. So Indians had the best shipbuilding industry in the world. We have completely lost that. We don't even have a memory of that today. We made the world's best ships. Some of the ships that saw action in the American Civil War were manufactured by Indians. Okay? So we had every form of industry you could imagine. You had textile industry, you had textile making industries, you had the most incredible sculptures that were made from wood, you had furniture making industries, you had, I suppose everything that was, we were the most technologically advanced civilization and fully industrialized civilization of the ancient times until the British took over. You had weapons making industries, okay, various kinds of weapons, guns, cannons, essentially everything a civilization needs. Everything was there. And, we are derided for our so-called caste system, right? So what we actually had, we had the jati system. A jati is it's a group of families or a group of people who have the same occupation. So we had tens of thousands of jatis in India, which means we had tens of thousands of occupations. And those jatis, they would keep the secrets of the trade within themselves. And that's why they married among each other, so that the trade secrets don't go out. That was a deal in India. So that's why we had endogamy, because we had these trade secrets and these industrial secrets that were thousands of years old. We didn't want to, these families didn't want to pass it on to others. So they married among each other. So that's how endogamy became a thing in India. It was not a caste system. It was a jati system. So when the Greeks came to India about 2,500 years ago, you had this Greek ambassador called Megasthenes, who was in Patliputra, the capital of Chandragupta Maurya. And Megasthenes wrote a detailed account of India that he saw. And he said that he saw that the Indian population was classified into 7 classes. I don't remember exactly. It was the philosophers and the priests and the warriors and the tradespeople and the agriculturists and so on and so forth. So it was not a 4-fold division; it was a 7-fold division, as per Megasthenes. So there was no. So you can organize society into various divisions, but we never had a caste system as such. We had a jati system. And the jati system was what the British simply could not understand. So they force-fitted everything into 4 castes. And today we have a situation in India where every government document, has your caste in it. Birth certificate, death certificate, the school leaving certificate, ye wo. So we have enforced the caste system today. The government of India has enforced it. And then we said that caste is a big problem in India. Abolish it. No Indian government document should have caste. End of story.
Right. Do you think back then there was poverty in India?
Well, look, if you are the world's biggest GDP, biggest contributor to the entire world's GDP, I suppose poverty would exist, but it would not be like what we consider poverty today. See, for example, there is a small population group today in India called the Parsis, maybe 70,000 or whatever. For the Parsis, you are below the poverty line if you earn less than 90,000 rupees a month. Okay? For most Indians, it's like, wow, 90,000, I'm happy. Right? So I'm sure there was poverty, but that was a different kind of category of poverty.
Right.
It means that maybe you did not have all the fantastic things other people had.
Right.
But nobody starved in India. Okay? You did not have the miserable poverty that you had after the British occupation of India.
I was reading somewhere that back then there were no lock system, and which implied that there was no need for robbery because everybody was prosperous and they had it for their families, that nobody required to go out and do any kind of smuggling or anything like that.
Yeah, so India was a pretty, Indians are a pretty peaceful people. Some of this could be apocryphal or colloquial or whatever, but yeah, you had a high degree of trust in Indian society. India was a high trust society. It is the opposite of that today.
Right.
Today you are suspicious of everybody, right? Because of a variety of reasons. But so historically it was not like that. Historically we trusted each other. We were a very peaceful population. We didn't fight. If kings fought, the armies fought each other. They never touched the civilians, ever. Never. So it was a totally different thing, right? Which sadly we have lost today.
Right. Talk to me about, so we discussed about how for the 500 years we were fighting, even when the Turks were here. Who was fighting for us? What's about India that we don't know, or who's that king or who's that fighter that Indians must know about?
I can't tell you. See, we have Rana Sanga, we have various kings of that time. See, when the Turks were trying to invade India, the brunt of these invasions was borne by northern and western India. So it is the kings who were in these regions who fought. You have Prithviraj Chauhan, who fought. You had various other kings who fought. Maharaja Jayachandra, who is now called Jayachand. He fought. You had all these kings who are now called Rajput kings. Okay, this word Rajput did not exist when the fighting was going on. It is a retroactively applied word, Rajput. At that time, I don't think any of those kings called themselves Rajputs. But they were the kings of the region and they fought to the best of their abilities. The tragedy of India is that if India had been unified at the time, the Turks would not have stood a chance. For example, when Alexander of Greece came to India, India was unified under a single emperor, Dhanananda of the Nanda dynasty, who was based in Patliputra. So the entirety of the subcontinent came under one single imperial command. Whenever India is united like this, no invader stands a chance. So we've been unified a few times in our history. The Nanda Empire, the Maurya Empire, which unified the whole of the subcontinent. Then you had the Kushan Empire, one of our greatest emperors, Kanishka the Kushan, Kanishka, great unifier of India. Then you had the Gupta Empire, where the subcontinent was once again unified. So you had these times in Indian history, and the Maratha Empire also, and the Chola Empire, which unified India with the whole of Southeast Asia, essentially, right? So you had these periods of time where India was unified. Those times, if somebody tried to invade, they did not stand a chance. But between these imperial periods, you had periods of fragmentation, where you had multiple kingdoms here and there, here and there.
Right.
When invasions happen at that time, they stand a higher chance of succeeding. So the Turks invaded India at a time when India was not unified politically. And that's where things went bad for India. But still, these kingdoms, the small kings here and there, they all fought, they all resisted as best they could. They defended us, our ancestors, with their blood. There's been a tremendous amount of sacrifice, bravery. So many women had to burn themselves alive so that they would not be caught alive or dead by the invaders. So much tragedy we have seen.
Is it any episode where maybe when you read about the king's sacrifice, or maybe the way it was working or the way they were functioning, you got emotional?
I mean, if you hear about the Jawahars and all, it's horrible. Of course, you'll get emotional. The problem is that many of these kings, they are no longer remembered today. Even their names may not be known to us. So because if they had not fought, then it would not. The whole process of reaching Delhi would not have taken 500 years, right? The whole process of conquering northern India, would not have taken 500 years for the Turks. It would have taken 50 years, perhaps. But we had resistance from so many kings, and those kings, even the names are lost in time.
Out of all, who were the most ferocious? Who were the...
I mean, one I can think of is Bappa Rawal, who is regarded as a semi-legendary king or whatever. But Bappa Rawal is one who actually took back territory from the Turks. So, for example, the region that is now called Pakistan, there is a city called Rawalpindi there. It's named after Bappa Rawal. So that region had been taken over by the Turks, and he went and fought them and evicted them, defeated them, and established the city which now bears his name. So he's one who fought the Turks, Bappa Rawal. Who else do we have? We have Maharana Pratap, we have Rana Sanga, we have so many of these Rajput kings who are now called Rajputs, right? Who fought the Turks. The Mughals were also Turks, by the way. Akbar was a Turk, Aurangzeb was a Turk, okay? And they fought these guys also. So there's plenty of these people, right?
What was special about Marathas?
The Marathas, okay, yeah, special. So the Rajputs, okay, they had this thing about honor and rules of warfare. Bhai, hum ye sab cheezein nahi karenge. We will not fight in the night. We will not shoot our enemy who's running away from the battlefield. We will not shoot him in the back. Okay, we will not destroy them completely and eradicate them from the face of the earth. No, we will fight like gentlemen. We have a sense of honor. They may be barbarians, but we are gentlemen. We are dharmic people. We will not do certain things. The Marathas said, to hell with all of that. We want to win. There was a difference. The Marathas said, we want to win at any cost. We will defeat them in ways that they can't imagine. So they used guerrilla tactics. The Rajputs would never use guerrilla tactics. Chi. Piche se hamla karna. Never. There was the stupidity. I would not say stupidity. It was one of the constraints that imposed upon themselves, the Rajputs. Too much honorable behavior. The Marathas said, we will use every tactic in the book and outside of the book. We'll use every guerrilla tactic, every tactic that will bring us closer to victory. And that's how they were able to defeat the Turks and essentially re-establish Hindu Swarajya over the subcontinent. That is what was special about the Marathas. And obviously, it all starts with the great Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, the great man who started it all.
So, in today's time, when we look at all the invasions and all the past, there's one side of the lobby which says that if that happened, it was the past, so we should forget it. The idea is that they came, but they became a part of the country.
Okay.
But the other section is, and the other mind says that you invaded our country, so you cannot be ours. How do you look at it?
So, if someone says forget the past, it's all in the past. I would say never forget the past. If you forget the past, you are doomed to repeat the same mistakes. You should know everything exactly as it happened. Whether it is convenient, inconvenient, whatever, the facts should be known to everybody. Exactly what happened, not whitewashed or whatever, politically made correct. No, exactly what happened, we have to know. So that is the first thing that needs to happen. Our youngsters need to be taught exactly what the history of India is, exactly how it happened, in all its gory brutality. Whatever was done to us and our ancestors. That needs to happen. Now the question is, you guys invaded us and now you're not us. That argument doesn't work. Most Indians who practice foreign religions, they're converted. They're not foreigners, right? If we have, let's say, for example, 200 million Muslims or whatever, they are Indians. They are descendants of our own ancestors. They were converted. The point is, some people want to glorify the foreign invaders of India. Don't glorify them. They brutalized you and your ancestors. That's why you are practicing a foreign religion. I would say, look, the Indian Muslims are our people. They are us by blood. They are our own people. We can't wish them away. We have obviously to accept the fact that so many Indians practice these foreign religions. They are our own people. We have to live in harmony together, all that. I would not say that they are foreigners or descendants of foreigners. There are very few Indian Muslims who have foreign ancestry. Go to Pakistan, do DNA tests there, even in Pakistan. Do they have Arabic or Turkish ancestry? Nothing. They're all subcontinental. So the thing is, my issue is with those people who still say, हमने आपके ऊपर राज किया है. अरे कौन सा तुमने राज किया है? The Arabs did that. The Turks did that. Are you Turks? You're not Turks, you're Indians. Right? So that comes through education. We have to educate people properly, right, so that they stop seeing the world in distorted ways.
Right. If you have to give 3 things that we must learn from our history, what would they be?
The first thing is that India has to be politically united at all times. Okay? Because wherever we have lost to foreigners, it's always been when we were fragmented.
But how is it possible in a democracy?
That's a good question you're asking. The second thing I would say... That's a good question. The second thing I would tell Indians is to look back at the times when India was great. We were great during the Maurya Empire. We were great during the period of the Kushan Empire. We were great during the period of the Gupta Empire, during the Chola Empire, during the Maratha Empire. We were great during the time of Shri Krishna, Shri Ram. Ask yourselves, what was the form of government when we were great? Every single time. Was it a democracy? Think. I would urge Indians to think. Utilize that brain that you have. Whenever India was great, did we have a democracy? It was an empire. It was a pure dictatorship. But you had democracy at the grassroots. You could elect your local officials to do the grassroots work for you. You could elect your local, town representatives or whatever, or your local guys who would do whatever, the administrative work and all. You could do that. But you could not vote out the emperor. You dare not do that, right? That is what gave India stability. Of course, dictatorship has its own potential downsides. If your dictator is a bad guy like Tadananda or like Kansa, then things are bad. But historically, we've hardly had that. Historically, we've had good kings, very few bad kings. So historically, our history tells us that the right system for a subcontinent-sized entity like India is not this every 5 years merry-go-round. That is wasting India's potential and talent and resources and energy and everything. Politics, political parties, debates, 8 p.m. debate, 9 p.m. debate, a waste of the mind space and time of Indians.
Right.
We need to have higher standards, but I'm not sure how we bring that about.
So one is unification, other is, the second is?
An indigenous form of government, I would say. An indigenous form of government. That's what you need.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there one more I should say?
Yeah, something about history that we must remember.
You have to remember your true history, whatever it is. If you don't know your true history, go and discover it. History is not about memorizing dates. History is about understanding causality, cause and effect.
Sure.
That's what history is about.
What were the taxation systems back then?
Tax was simple. It was a flat tax once a year, 25% of whatever.
That's it.
That's it. Okay? I think that's pretty fair, 25%. Today, let's say you're a salaried person today. let's say you're earning 1 lakh a month, hypothetically. What's the tax slab? 20%? What is it?
Yeah, around
20%.
that. Yeah.
Okay. So out of the 1 lakh, you're giving 20,000 to the government. So you take home 80%, 80,000. Okay. Then when you purchase something, let's say you purchase coffee from something, you're paying GST on that. आपने already tax दिया, उसके ऊपर आप फिर से tax दे रहे हो.
Correct.
Every single purchase you make, you're paying tax on that.
House rent, tax.
House tax, road tax. If you purchase a vehicle, you're being taxed upon tax. So maybe your take home may be 50 or 60,000. Maybe the actual amount of tax you're paying must be around 45%.
Right. What can we learn from the modern empire?
Keep it simple. Don't make things complicated for the people. Keep it simple. Maybe there should be just one tax slab for everybody. Or maybe people below a certain level should be exempt from tax if they earn very little. I don't know. I think the income tax department exists only to generate employment for the government. It's an employment generation scheme. So we make the taxation system so complicated that we need millions of employees to run the whole thing. Keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible. Maybe you can have a different taxation regime for foreign investors in India or whatever. It could be like that. But for the people of India, keep it as simple as possible. What's the problem? Decide one tax rate and impose it globally. Or abolish income tax and just make everything GST based. Because anyway, when you purchase something, you're paying tax to the government. No matter what you purchase. You purchase 1 kilo of bananas or whatever. You're still paying tax to the government.
Yeah.
So then why do you need income tax? Why do you need all these 500 different kinds of taxes? Why can't you just make things simple so that people can live in peace?
Correct.
It's overcomplicated right now.
Right.
I don't understand why. Learn from the best. Learn from the guy who wrote the original book, the Artha Shastra, the Shastra of economics. A simple flat tax slab on everybody. So his principle was that tax should not be onerous. It should be something that the people will happily, voluntarily pay to the government. Right? It should not be excessive. It should not be too light either. Keep it balanced. Right. The government obviously also needs to run. The empire needs to run. So that people have to contribute to it. But don't overburden them. Right. I think that makes so much sense. It's a timeless principle. It's timeless wisdom.
Absolutely. What else does Arth Shastra teaches us?
Have spies everywhere. National security is paramount. Investigate everybody. Keep everybody under your control. At least keep everyone under your watch. You never know where the next enemy of the people will come from.
Chanakya used to do it?
Oh yeah. Totally. Then he has a whole section on statecraft, which is geopolitics, international relations. How to deal, if you're a weaker king, how to deal with stronger kings. If you're a strong king, how to deal with weaker kings.
Wow.
All that stuff is there.
Wow.
It's really interesting. It's a really interesting book,
Right. So, like to conclude this episode, as always, it's so much fun. To all the youngsters who are watching you, what would you like to, maybe, if you want to leave them with a thought, what would it be?
Raise your standards. Raise your standards. Learn critical thinking. Learn your history. History isn't memorizing dates. History is understanding why the world is the way it is. How did that happen? Be curious about your past. Be curious about what your ancestors used to do. Be curious about it from a technological perspective, if you like technology, or science perspective. Look up Indian science. Look at what contributions we made to science and mathematics and pharmacology and toxicology and physics and astronomy and calculus and so much more. Be curious about the world. Raise your standards overall. That's what I say.
Suggest a book.
A book. I'm terrible at book recommendations, but if you want to learn, look, a historical book?
Yeah.
I would suggest an ancient book. Ancient as in 100 years, roughly. It's the story of civilization by Will Durant. It's a 12-volume set. It's massive, but it's fascinating. It's about world history. Egypt, Rome, including India also. Right. The Indian passages are kind of tragic and so that's why for much of my life I stayed away from Indian history. But once I got into it, it was really fascinating, especially the older history.
Right.
So I would recommend that. It's a 12-volume book set. I'm not sure if it's still in print or not, but you can acquire it if you know how to find things.
Thank you so much, Abhijit Chavda. It's always a pleasure to host you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
आज का पूरा शो देखने के लिए दिल से शुक्रिया. एपिसोड कैसा था मुझे कमेंट सेक्शन में जरूर बताइएगा. चैनल को सब्सक्राइब भी अवश्य करें क्योंकि सुपर टॉक्स एक मूवमेंट है जो हमारे देश का भविष्य उज्जवल बना रहा है. जय हिंद.